The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, residents of Easton. This is Bill Ames, the co-host of the Film Connection, which has been beaming to the citizens of Easton and the other local cable channels now for 20 years. We're very proud of that. We like to interview several different types of categories of people. One, high schoolers who have lived in Easton or local towns who have started working their way up in the media world, either here or out in California. And then we've been very lucky to get put in touch with interviewees such as our guest today who have substantial accomplishments in the professional filmmaking world, either on the screen as talent or many of them in the back end, the production end. They all have a wonderful story, and that's what we try to bring to you guys out there in Hollywood. No, Easton, I should say. How could I mix those two up? So my co-host here is, as I like to say always, is the brains of the operation. And Priscilla Almquist-Olsen, over to you.
Thank you. I want to welcome Hernany Perla, who's a close colleague and friend of my son Eric out there in LA, and they're in the same business, both producers and screenwriters. And I imagine, and I believe that you have known each other for a long time. So welcome, Hernany.
Thank you guys for having me. I love this. I lived off shows like this when I was wanting to get in the film industry. So kudos.
And so you and Eric have worked on some projects together, or you just worked in the same studio? What was it?
No, we worked in the same circle and field. I'm not sure that Eric and I have actually worked on the same project together, but we both, he was one of the first people I met when I moved out here in 2002, and he was already a CE for Joel Silver, and I was, an assistant at the time. And I met him on a general meeting, which is the type of meeting that agents set. And Eric was one of the first people I met, and it was love at first sight. So, he's been a friend for years and a great producer and writer.
Yeah, thank you. I agree totally. Okay, so tell me, you describe yourself as both a screenwriter and a producer. How do these identities intersect for you, and which came first?
Well, they actually don't often in film, to be honest. In TV, they do because, you have writer producers. In film, it's usually one or the other. But so you kind of know my story. I moved out to LA with a bunch of shitty scripts in 2002 that I had been writing in college. And you quickly learn that you're not very good, right? When you actually start reading a lot of the pros I worked in the mailroom at an agency called Paradigm, that's still around. They represented, so I was not that good, frankly. And so I did the producing route. I worked at a studio. I worked at Lionsgate for a long time, which is first as an assistant, and then moved up to director development. And then did production for a director. It's a job that Eric actually helped me get because he was friendly with the director. So I learned the producing game independently of writing nights and weekends until eventually I was able to sell a couple of things. And at that point, if you're doing it for 10, 15 years, you improve significantly, and then you can go and make a career, or at least partially make a career as a writer. But you've got the producing bug at this point because you've produced a bunch of movies, so you end up doing both. But they don't really intersect or overlap, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. And which do you prefer? Which is the most fun?
Oh, both have their ups and downs. I'll tell you the beautiful thing about just producing is creating something with a group of people that people will actually see, like it's going to exist out in the world. And also there's the sense of like, because frankly, to be honest, I produce independent films. Like these are, lower budget genre movies. So you discover a lot of people coming up. A lot of the people who I did early movies with are now like working professionals. And that's just a great sense of accomplishment of, giving someone a shot or finding someone who nobody had seen who goes on to do great things. So that's what makes producing great.
Yeah.
It's also very, very time consuming and difficult and sometimes can't be monetized. Writing is creatively can be very liberating, but you can also spend a long time writing something that will never see the light of day. And most people don't. And that comes with its frustrations. So yeah, it depends on the day, I guess.
So tell me, what drew you into filmmaking originally?
I would think probably a lot of what drew Eric. And so Eric loves 90s action movies because in the formative years, whatever your thing is kind of what you fall in love with. You're going to want to pursue it. And the same movies that the Bruckheimer 90s movies, the Joel Silver 90s, 2000s movies, that as a kid, cinema was what I loved the most. So I wanted to work in it in one way or another. And in Texas, you're like, oh, you write, you produce, you act. That's all you know. And then you come out to LA, you find out there's a whole business, or at least used to be. But no, it was the love of film, frankly, of 90s cool action stuff.
So over to me. So you've got writing credits for the following movies I noticed on the internet: Blink, Revelation, Santeria, and Torture Man. So your scripts seem to span from psychological thrillers to supernatural stories. What do you find yourself returning to time and time again? Well, I get your hesitation there, but
no. It's because I was gonna say mind F's. Like I love cerebral twisters. I'm like I can't cuss in this show, but yeah, I like psychological thrillers. Is anything that kind of stimulates your mind and makes you have that. Oh, I've never seen it that way before.
Yeah.
That's what I pursue in the writing. And by the way, I will correct. So I've sold those scripts and they've been set up where I've been hired to write them. But pursuant to what I said earlier, none of them have been made. Those are all movies that are in development. The only movie I've had made, I actually had made this year. And that's the only one that, I think people will be able to go and see.
Yeah, so those four I just mentioned are in development, so to speak.
Correct.
Yeah, which takes a long time. So let me ask, how did the ideas for Blink and Revelation first come to you? Were they lightning flash inspirations or slow builds?
Funny, the way it usually comes, a lot of things, it's a slow build that of a combination of ideas that never really have any shape. And then one day something happens and they all kind of crystallize, right? Revelation was that. It was in a few ideas that you'd read from a philosophy class or, it's other things you take and you mix them up in different ways. And with that one, I remember one day it all kind of clicked into place. Just the characters out of nowhere, but it had been thinking about it. Blink was inspired or very much influenced by a movie called The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, which was a point of view of a quadriplegic man, but it was a drama. And I remember being it's a phenomenal film, just shaken by the movie and the way it was told. It was the first time I felt, wow, this device makes me feel like I'm a paralyzed man. But you could use this device in a thriller. So that was how that one came. So that was more immediate inspiration versus the other one.
Well, interesting, like in Santeria and Torture Man, how do you approach subjects that touch on the darker or more spiritual territory?
Well, those two, by the way, Torture Man is a book. So that was adapted from Warren Adler's novel. He's a phenomenal novelist. He did The War of the Roses and a bunch of other stuff. So that was already kind of beaten out for me. Santeria was actually an original idea by Jennifer Lopez because I think, I'm not sure if this is known, but she's like believes in the Santeria and all that stuff. And she had been working on a movie in North Carolina, and this idea of popped into her head. So for me, my family's evangelical Salvadorans. There's a lot of belief there in things like that. So that's already kind of ingrained into me, to be totally honest. The fear of the darkness on the other side, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, when you begin a script, do you outline it a lot, or you discover the story as you along go? Or are you a pantser? Do you begin in the middle and then see what happens and then write your structure, or how do you approach it? What's your...
I used to kind of like, I'll figure it out. I outline a lot more now. I used to be like a 5-page outline guy, but I did have the beginning, middle, and end, and then however you get there, you filled it out on the page. Now I'm on 15-page outline guy, and you still end up discovering things.
So the end is really crucial to have in your head, I guess, when
you
go along.
It is. You're absolutely right. A lot of the best, yes. Someone even said, people remember the first 15 minutes and the last 15 minutes. And that's very true. But sometimes you have the idea, and then as you write it, it changes,
Yeah.
And it ends up being just as good.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
my final question in this block, if I may, is...
my turn. You've had 3.
What's the hardest part of writing a screenplay for you? And what's the most fun?
Well, the hardest part is that 15-page outline.
You do the next.
Because you do the work up front. The most fun for me is actually revising once it's done. So least fun, the 15-page outline. Second least fun, getting that first draft. Most fun, revising it, because at that point, you're working on something that you already feel kind of works, and you're making it better.
So I did a bunch of these scripts back in the old days, and I used to love writing dialogue. Not that somehow it just, I remembered conversations, or I think most people can sort of warehouse in their minds pithy statements or exchanges that are particularly memorable. So how do you do it? Do you have any sort of a plan when you write dialogue? Is it just...
So here's what's funny, Bill, that you say that, because I think screenwriting kind of works on 3 levels. First, on the bottom level is how nice the descriptions are. 2 is the dialogue, and 3 is how everything kind of works together to give you a picture. The first one you can teach, the third one you can't teach, the second one you can't teach. You listen, and then you imitate, and then you hope that you have that gift, frankly. And
you can read it to somebody, and they can probably tell you pretty quickly.
I'm trying to hear the other thing is, most people, whether they'll ever tell you or not, most executives, when you have 5 scripts to read in one night, you're gonna skim through the descriptions and go through the dialogue. Yeah. So that ends up being the most important part of the script, in terms of it has to be on point. And yes, you can tell quickly, and B, you can't teach it, and C, I'm still learning it, to answer your question.
Yeah.
It's the most nervous part, because you can't teach it.
Okay, following up on that, do you ever have you ever had to rewrite a script in order to accommodate your role as producer? For example, you have a certain character as the lead, but then you get a dynamic actor who's not the lead, but you want to make him the lead, and then you have to rewrite the script to accommodate that. Do you ever do that?
Well, when I produce movies, I don't write on them. It's usually one or the other, because usually it's like a film. It's often a filmmaker, or it's a script that you've gotten that then gets rewritten by other writers. But I've had people do rewrites on scripts for that reason.
Oh, okay.
Where, you said it once. Sometimes an actor is great, and you give them a little more, and sometimes it becomes, especially on my movies, because they're lower budget, logistics are a big issue. Mm-hmm. We can't get that big house. Can it be in an apartment? Or, all right, we can't do this? Can it be shown from the side of the street? So that you're doing all the time for indie movies. You never want to be in a position where you're changing too much in production, or that's just chaos, very expensive chaos, you know.
Okay, moving on. Your producing credits are the following: Ghost Team 1, Eden, Public Disturbance, Don't Fear, Jade, and Nightingale. Which of these projects taught you the most or changed the way you work?
You know, for sure, it was Ghost Team 1 and Eden. So Ghost Team 1 was a movie that I just got, I think, really lucky on, because it was made for, you know, Submill. It was the first movie I did out of Lionsgate. It was a little found footage horror comedy that got into a good festival, Slamdance, and then sold to Paramount. And that was my first one. So I'm like, oh my God, this is easy. I know how to do this now. I'm just going to put an idea and a filmmaker together and then hope it works out, because I got lucky. That didn't happen. The second movie was much bigger, and there was a lot of the chaos that I'm talking about. So it was the realization for the second movie that I got lucky on the first movie, and I needed to learn how to actually do it, if that answers the question. So it was those first two that kind of shaped me.
And what makes you say yes to a project when somebody invites you to write a script on a certain theme?
Well, if it's something that I'm pitching on, that I want, that they're hiring me for, it's usually it's to do a good job and get a job as a writer that you can then impress them on and hopefully get more work. If it's something that I'm producing that somebody brings me, I've got to love it. And it has to be something I know I could do, meaning lower budget. I know it's commercial. I know I can make it for a budget at which I will send its money back, and I really like it. It's got to be those three things have to hit.
Uh-huh. Okay. What's a misconception people have about producing that you wish you could correct?
Well, I'll answer that question with a question. Ask a producer what they do, and you're going to get 50 different answers. But the short of it is, a producer is someone with whom the movie wouldn't happen. All right. Like, if that person didn't exist, they bring something to the table that makes the movie happen. And that's three things. Either bring money, you bring talent that you can monetize, or you bring the material. Or you're like a line producer that puts it together physically and helps the movie, once it's done, get to the finish line in terms of being on the set. I think people think producers are like the rich guy in the back who's like telling people what to do. And it ends up being sometimes the opposite. You're doing a lot of the thankless stuff, and your name is going to be one of 50 other names, even though you might have helped raise half the money for the movie, or developed the screenplay for 5 years. So to answer your question, I think producers are often the under-thanked person in the job, whereas I think a lot of people think it's the person. There's many different types, and most types are, it's sometimes a thankless job, because in success, it goes to the director. But so, yeah, it's a tougher job than most people think. It's not as glamorous as most people think.
No, it's I know from Eric's descriptions that it's day-to-day frustration, and and just being able to roll with the punches, right?
The independent producers. Listen, I've never been in the military, but I can imagine, like, friends of mine who have tell me, when a soldier kind of meets a soldier, there's something kind of unspoken, especially if you've kind of been. It's not the same. It's not life or death, but when you've come across another independent producer who's done 3 or 4 movies, and you know that journey, you spent 3 years to get the money, 3 years for it to get made, another year for it to get into festivals. You kind of like, you see the scars very quickly, and there's a mutual respect there because it's so difficult.
Yeah, well, you know Eric's movie The Dirt.
Yes, yes, that's one of them. That's exactly one of them. It's proving
And
my point.
and maybe you don't know, but it took him 10 years to produce that.
Yeah, no, I know, and you
But
know,
last year, he came to visit for Christmas. He stayed for 2.5 months, and in those 2.5 months, he wrote a screenplay called Floyd. And I
yeah,
said,
I actually
I said,
I read Floyd. I liked it a
yeah, I
lot.
know, yeah, and so hopefully it'll get made. But the interesting thing is, so I said to him, why would you spend 10 years working on something and when you can spend 2.5, 3 months writing a screenplay, get more money for it than you'll ever get as a producer? So what draws somebody to produce? There's got to be
Because that script that can sell for a lot of money will probably never get made because I think if 10 scripts sell, one or two get made. It's something like that.
yes.
Um,
Hmm.
I think it's a desire to leave a mark in the world that will outlive you, which isn't a file in a computer. I think that's the appeal.
Plus, if you're a new producer, you got to show the world you paid the dues, right? That you've started, you've hired, you've fired, you've made big decisions and stuff. And I would think the word gets around in Los Angeles and Hollywood who's got the chops, even though maybe they haven't succeeded, but the fact that they did it.
People talk for sure. It's a smaller town than people think it is, and you go on IMDb and you look at the connections. You're like, oh, my friend worked with this. They'll make a call. So yes, everything you're saying is correct.
Well, what about Lionsgate? That's been a big successful producing house, but it's fairly new, right? I mean, Lionsgate doesn't go way back to the 30s like Paramount or all that sort of stuff. But
No, it goes back to, I think. Well, no, I think maybe the 80s. So I was Lionsgate when I started. The posters on the wall were Medea's Family Reunion and Saw, and when I left, the poster on the wall was um, Hunger Games. So you can just see that trajectory, right? Go from genre and what people would think is more niche to blockbuster, and it's had its ups and downs, but it's a very impressive company. The leadership is great. I think most companies start at the top, and Feldheimer, Burns, all those guys are intelligent stand-up guys. So by the way, it's funny because it's never managed to become like, I guess, what New Line became in the 90s, where it was bought by Warner Brothers, but it's on the verge. And I think the closest thing that we've had to New Line in the 90s is still Lionsgate.
well, it's a great name. It sort of grows on you, Lionsgate. I mean,
Correct.
But I'd forgotten that they'd done Hunger Games. Certainly, that first Hunger Game with Joe, who was it? Jennifer Lawrence and Sutherland and a couple of those others. I mean, that's a giant film. Looking back,
Yeah, I would say it's back to like a New Line. It had Nightmare on Elm Street. It had these horror movies that kind of took them there, but then it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that kind of got them to that mini major studio level.
Yeah.
To me, that was Hunger Games for Lionsgate. That kind of took them to, and now you see me. They're on that verge of like being competitive with the big studios.
but but the movie, what is it, John Wick? What's that series that they had?
Yeah,
They had low expectations for that, and I
but
guess
John Wick, I think, is a negative pickup, which means that they pre-bought the movie. So I don't think they get all of the profits of that movie. Whereas Hunger Games or Now You See Me, I believe, are all Lionsgate. Like they get all the benefit of that.
So there's sort of almost a distributor for the John Wick.
Distributor, but they got involved. Obviously, they didn't just acquire it; they pre-bought it. So it's like so they did take a chance, but it wasn't. They didn't fully finance the movie so that they owned the whole world in perpetuity. It's not one of those.
Well, it's a staggering number, $500 million, I think, for one of those, the Wick 3 or 4 or something. I know some fellow who's a director a board director at Lionsgate.
Oh, wow.
He didn't give me any inside information or anything, but he said it was astounding. No, they couldn't. Well, who could have guessed? Department.
I didn't, and I like those movies. I didn't think it was going to be as big as it became.
I've never seen one of them, but Keanu Reeves in Matrix. I mean, he pulled that one off, and I guess he's John Wick, right? Isn't he he's the guy in the carries the film.
Okay, now listen, Bill. I have seen all the John Wick movies.
Oh,
You haven't. And Matrix. My son was a producer of that when he was with Joel Silver Pictures, and that I just love Keanu Reeves. He's just amazing, and those films were wonderful. And you know, it's interesting because I don't really like murder stuff, killing, you know, that kind of thing. But I love this. I don't know. He made murder so easy, and actually.
made it so to want to do it yourself, huh?
Well, no, Bill. But it was an appropriate thing to do with the movie line. You know, it all fit in.
They killed his dog. They did kill his dog.
It was, and it was fun. I
So-
mean, I didn't really take it seriously. Was that part of the point?
Yes. Like that's a movie that you want to see for cool action, and kind of, you know, leave your brain at the door in a good way. You know, it's like it is a heightened reality for sure. Even with the hotel and the coins, it's a slightly, not our world.
Yeah. Well, you know, Denzel Washington was in a similar but more serious. It's not something you laugh at, but what was the name? Equalizer, right? And I saw those movies too. Bill, have you seen The Equalizer?
No.
Oh, good.
Bill, you got to
blamed
do a marathon this week.
Hernany, he
Note to
blames
self:
me.
go to Equalizer.
Okay, he blames me because I haven't seen Pulp Fiction yet.
You believe that?
Oh, you got to go see Pulp Fiction, though.
You got that's right.
I think I'll have to do that tonight. All right. Next question. Your newest project is White Tide, and it was an action thriller filmed in Italy. What can you tell us about the story without giving too much away?
So this was actually not my idea. This was the producers and financiers had an idea, and I'd worked with them on some stuff before. So they hired me to write it, and then they made it. And I got to tell you, I'm like, this might never happen again. Like that never happens in Hollywood. It's the opposite of development hell, where you're like, here's an idea, you write a script in a few months, and then they're in production on it a few months later. It's unheard of. So it's actually in post right now. I'm very excited about this director, the producers, the whole team on this is awesome, and I think could have a big future. But let's see. They're editing at the moment, so I'm very cautiously optimistic that it's going to be a little gem. I hope.
I know you're very excited about that. And how did Italy shape the film's tone, style, or narrative?
Well, it takes place in Italy, so it's two American guys who are played by British actors who go to a wedding at a masseria, which is like their version of a hacienda, of which Italy has a lot. Like it's very beautiful, vineyards to have weddings. Mm-hmm. And then, things happen and the hilarity ensues with some guns going off. So I believe the producers have ties to Italy, and also there's a great rebate and there's a great film community there in terms of great crews, infrastructure. So you combine all those things, namely the rebate, which is, who wouldn't want to make a movie for more that you get a big chunk of the money back on. It ended up being, Italy, but
so Italy didn't have any impact on the substance of the movie at all.
Well, because it was going to be shot in Italy, it took place in Italy, and therefore the setting it is a little town in the south of Italy, and that's actually part of the appeal, right? When you see a trailer and you have a very sexy location, it makes you want to see the movie. So that was all from the get-go, a big part of the appeal. And therefore, because they're running around this little town and it's kind of like a dark comedy, all of the guys are running into are Italian. It's like an Italian soccer player, Italian mobster. So it's part of the fabric of the story for sure.
Was your line producer an Italian?
Yeah, everyone is the above the line producers are also like Italian, but worked in Hollywood type people.
Oh.
So yeah.
Okay, your question.
Well, what do you think of the merger between Netflix and Warner Brothers? What is that? I guess it's got to be approved. And what's going on there?
Well, there's just a rule, Bill, that is less buyers is never good for anybody in the long run. And that's the case here. However, the one caveat, I think, in our current landscape is that the types of entertainment that creators go into are also changing. Meaning, when there's a consolidation of the majors, that means the indie market always kind of blooms bigger alongside it, right? That's a potential benefit. But I think for people who, like myself and Eric, who would prefer to work in the studio system, yeah, it's a contracting market because you have less people to sell to when there's less buyers. They have more power. It's as simple as that from our end. For the consumer, I think it might end up being a good thing, though.
Well, Netflix has got to keep its act going. It's been such a huge success.
$400 billion market cap.
Unbelievable.
But Netflix has a lot of movies in the back room, shall we say? It's projected. So the ones they're doing now will be in years to come because they've got so many. That's what Eric tells me.
Well, they have a lot of stuff in development. It's also there's also different regime changes, and sometimes those projects get replaced by the new regime. But in terms of so by the way, this is what it really comes down to. I think philosophically, Netflix believes in shorter distribution windows, meaning you don't need to have a movie in theaters for 3 months. People would rather have it at their homes. But if they know that it's going to be at your home a month later, why go to the theater? But because as a consumer, I can check 3 okay movies out if I'm sitting at home. But if I'm going to go to the theater, it's got to be the one I want to see. They're able to pump out so much more product that people are more willing to see or even see part of. So I think a lot of that stuff that you're talking about is going to end up going straight to streaming. And I mean, they've said it. If it goes through, I think the distribution windows are going to be a lot smaller for even their bigger theatrical stuff,
But now, do you ever think that the local theaters will ever become prosperous again, or that people will start going to theaters to see movies? Is Netflix making life so easy for them they can sit in their home and watch a movie? What do you think? You think there's life after death for the movies?
I don't think
theaters.
I think it's a human nature question. I think having a communal activity that people can do is always going to be around. But whereas at one point it was vaudeville, then it was silent films, and then it was before that it was opera, right? There's always something that people congregate to go see. I'm not sure that it is going to be big movies as much anymore, to be honest. I think it might end up being something like Sphere, where if I'm going to go and pay this much money, I want it to be something bigger and different. There's always going to be a place for it. I think at least in our lifetimes, where we're going to be wanting to go to see a certain movie. For me, it was F1. This year, it was Sinners, Weapons. But it used to be every week that there was a movie I wanted to go see when I grew up. Now it's every month. And I think now it's going to be every couple of months, or it's going to be that, if that makes sense.
Well, it used to be that in order for a film to be considered for an Oscar, it had to be in the movie theaters for at least 3 months. And I believe they got rid of that rule because of the reality of streaming. Is that right?
Yes, for sure. But let me ask you, I mean, you guys are great hosts. I'm curious, genuinely, what do you guys think? Because would you do you need the movie theater to be as robust as it is, or are you happy watching it at home?
Well, the dynamics of the movie is so different because when you're in a theater, you feel like you're actually part of the scene. It's a whole different reality. So I think there's a big attraction to go back to the theaters, to see that huge screen, and
Well, do you think it's a generational thing going on here?
could be.
We're emotionally attached to the movie screen from, decades.
Although, let me ask you, even what you just said, Penny, that attachment to the movie theater, does it depend on the type of movie it is?
Uh-huh.
I mean, like Black Bag. Do you need to go see that in a theater? Like a really small emotional drama. Does the theater still hold appeal for that type of movie if it's not a big visual spectacle?
I see. Okay.
No, I mean that's a question, and I don't know the
think
answer
so.
to that question.
They have a two-screen movie theater in Dedham, which is one of the suburbs of Boston, and I go there pretty often. And they're always, they're targeted at they're not slam bam action films, and they get the best films. They get very good films. Like I saw Hamnet. Have you heard of Hamnet?
Of course, I'm dying to see it. By the way, they say it's going
Absolutely
to
wonderful
probably be the big awards winner.
I'd love to see the script of that because the first 2/3 you're looking at it and you think this is sort of a loser film here, but they're building the case for when the last third comes on, you go, aha, that's when it hits you. Plus, you see that Steven Spielberg was the producer. You say he obviously knows what the end of this film is.
Well, I think it's based on a novel.
It is, yeah. A lot of people read it, but that was just a personal experience there. But I like the going to the theaters, the big screens. I certainly got out of the habit of doing it, but once I got back into the habit of doing it, I don't have a family or a job or anything like that, so it's easy for me to say all this, but.
And the other thing about this movie theater in Dedham is it's called the Coolidge Corner.
Dedham Community Theater.
Oh, Dedham Community Theater now. Okay, different name. One of our winners in the Hockomock Film Festival was a young man who went to India and made a documentary. We interviewed him several times during the process of his production, and then he used the theater, the Dedham Film.
This is Coolidge Corner Theater is what you're talking about.
Yeah, Coolidge Corner Theater, right, to premiere his movie, and the place was packed, and so it's another contribution that the local theater is doing for young filmmakers. And
That's great.
He was only 23 years old when he did this. So,
Wow.
Well,
yeah.
you need someone had a passion for it at the top, who owns the theater and whatever.
Right.
But let me ask you another question. We're over halfway through and we haven't dropped the A bomb yet.
Oh, okay. Let's
which
do
is
it.
At artificial intelligence.
Right.
What do you think the long-term, short-term, intermediate view of impact of artificial intelligence is going to be on writing scripts, so forth? Obviously, you can write a script a lot faster with artificial intelligence, but maybe it's well, over to you. But maybe it's no good or whatever.
I think it's going to change the landscape of filmmaking without a doubt. just even seeing some of the stuff that I'm seeing now of how realistic it's starting to look, I don't think that any type of guild protections is going to stop the tide, right? To answer your question, I think filmmakers are going to look very different in maybe even 10 years, where what you consider a director is a guy in his room sending material to other people in remote locations and writing things that are in their heads versus being on set directing a group of people. I think that it's going to change in that way. But AI is middle to middle, right? It's never going to tell you where to start. It's never going to tell you where to end. But it can make certain aspects, research, diction, a lot more efficient, you know. Going back to your question about dialogue, can't do dialogue because dialogue is one of those things that you can imitate it and sometimes it can sound, but it's kind of a living art, right?
Yeah.
It can't really be taught. So
Well,
I think it makes it more efficient and people need to use it for that efficiency, but it's not going to take that third thing away, which is how it all works together. You still have to know that. And that's the pinnacle of storytelling, I think, as a screenwriter.
You talk about a generational tipping point. That's got to be the mother of all generational tipping points because
absolutely. I'm so glad I've never had interest in directing, to be honest, because I'm like, oof, nowadays coders might end up being the directors, you know?
Yeah. Plus, you know, you got to make the movie in your business, so there's got to be a producer, there's got to be a director, there's got to be a composer, there's got to be gaffers, there's got to be all this stuff. So,
listen, I think producers are going to look different. I think producers are going to have to be more writerly, are going to know more about story. You're not going to need, I think, physical line producers, but you're going to need someone who knows a lot about post, given what the post will look like using AI, right? How it all comes. I think producing is going to be a lot closer to music producers in the future because of AI.
Yeah, yeah.
So getting back to White Tide, what were some of the biggest challenges or surprises during production?
To be honest with that one, because I was just a writer,
Oh, okay.
So they were nice. I showed up on set. They freaking treated me extremely well, and then I left. That's one of the advantages of just being.
Okay, so when you were growing up, where did you grow up, by the way?
So I was born in El Salvador, but we moved when I was a kid to Houston, El Salvador.
Oh, okay.
I grew up in Houston, Texas.
And you went to Texas. A lot of El Salvadorians there.
Tons. I mean, Houston,
yeah.
Washington, D.C., and L.A. as well. I'm like, I think there's more here than there are in El Salvador at this point.
Okay. And how old were you when you emigrated?
5 or 6.
Yeah. I mean, because
totally
your English is probably as good
Flawless.
or not better than ours. Now, so tell me a little bit about your growing up. Was there anything that you were exposed to that made an impact on you in terms of your future career?
Oh yeah, it was as simple as, first of all, Houston, Texas is just a bunch of malls. It's just like it's a bunch of malls and gas stations. It's not super indulgent. So movies was the big thing for me. It's what I looked forward to the most. It's what I was curious into how they were made. I had an uncle who would take me all the time. He worked on a ship. He would come, be in Houston for a few days, and it was understood, great, we're going to go see every movie. And it was literally what I looked forward to the most. So I associated filmmaking with just pleasure, right? So I think if I hadn't grown up that way, I wouldn't have loved it as much.
What was your first production? What was the first thing you produced or created?
It was that movie Ghost Team 1, which was like, sub-mill, and it was shot in a house and it was found footage. It was 2013, I think it came out. So we shot it in 2012.
But I mean, as a kid, as a 10-year-old speculating on your future, right? You must have you must have had a camera.
Oh yeah. Neighbors shooting basketballs, little stories that you come up with. We had a little street full of neighbors, and it was, we made little movies for sure.
Yeah.
And it was the old bulky VHSs, if you remember those.
Yeah.
Yeah, your turn.
So, Keanu Reeves, I mean, you meet different personalities in these they have their family lives and whatever. And Keanu Reeves, certainly, it seems like an extraordinary person. Very much not in the front of on the red carpet type mentality, but been very generous to charities. I wish I could recall the exact articles that I've read, but I think the different personalities of people you meet along the way, stars or whatever, or leading characters, must vary dramatically in terms of their personalities and who you like and who you don't like. And are there any war stories you can come up with in terms of getting to know stars or leading characters who've been difficult? Or
I'm lucky. I haven't had to deal with them. When I was at Lionsgate and they made bigger movies and I was like a younger exec, I wouldn't always go to set. So you would hear, oh man, they're having problems with so-and-so. And it was just gossip around the office, right? But those were like kind of bigger stars. The movies I've worked off tend to be up and coming actors. And when you're kind of up and coming, you're still kind of nice. Yeah. So what I have encountered is like directors who, when they get on set, become little dictators, and outside of set, and the reason you hire them is because you think they're collaborative, easier to work with, and on set they just like the truth comes out or the identity changes. I've encountered that a couple of times, and that makes it tough because it trickles down to the production and the actors and the set. But I think, frankly, that's just most directors. You have to be a bit of a leader to be a director. And there's also a certain, it's like, I'm the center of the universe because this is my movie. But the good ones know that it's really a collaborative process. But to answer your question, I haven't had it with actors, but I've hit it with a couple of directors, for sure.
Well, I was looking at Nicholson. What's his first name?
Jack
Nicholson's Wikipedia page the other day. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. You figure he'd be sort of a temperamental guy, but he isn't. He's quite the opposite. He's a charming guy to the staff and everything. He sort of knows how to make the wheels work. And others are not quite the same.
Right.
I met Gene Autry when I was a kid. Came out to our local town.
Oh wow.
And so I got to know him. 1 minute conversation, and he must have been in his 60s, and he was.
Well, you were a little kid then.
Yeah, because my father was asking him about his orange groves, because Gene Autry maybe most of our viewers don't know who Gene Autry was. He was sort of the singing cowboy.
He was, yes, and he was on television once a week, and we all watched him as kids.
And he came to Easton.
Right, and I don't remember what was the reason he came.
Well, somebody here was involved with a charity in Boston, and they managed to get Gene to come to, help. It was good for him, good for his PR. So she said, why don't you come out where I live in Easton, Town of Easton, why don't you come out there? So they got him out here, got him on a horse, and the kids all, had a good time.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Well, you probably were.
Where was I?
You were probably studying or something like that, so you couldn't afford the time. But the classic story was Elizabeth Taylor, when they had a terrible fire here. It was called the Coconut Grove, when 400 people died. It was a nightclub. It was owned by Barbara Walters' father, I think it was, or something.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so they tried to, after it was over and whatever, they tried to have a big sort of Red Cross dinner and whatever, and raise money for the survivors and all this stuff. And so they called Elizabeth Taylor, and she couldn't be bothered to return the call. I'm sure she's a nice person and all that, but it just didn't do anything to her. So the guy in Boston knew Louis B. Mayer. So we talked to Louis B. Mayer. Oh, wow. So Louis B. Mayer, who was the owner of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, I guess it was, calls her up and says, get your butt over there to Boston and that Red Cross thing. And she came, and she, once she got here, she was great. But
Yeah.
fun little stories like that, you
Yeah.
know,
Where was the Coconut Grove located? Was that Roxbury?
by the Boston Common.
Oh, by the Boston Common.
Yeah, it was about a block away. During this interview, we sat down together, right, and we wrote a bunch of questions out. So do you think genre filmmaking, like thrillers, action, horror, offer freedoms that the more traditional storytelling doesn't?
It's a great question, by the way, because I like genre movies. You know what? I think it offers you a way by which the darker things of life are acceptable, because they're in the genre already, right? Genre, it's horror, it's thriller, it's sci-fi, and those are ways to talk about some of the darker things in the world. So I would actually think that is a big appeal of genre film, is that it lets you kind of talk about more taboo stuff, even if it's disguised.
So what is storytelling is like To Kill a Mockingbird, right? Film like that or something like that, where genre is like Star Wars. But they're all stories anyway when you get right down to it, right? I mean, what's not a story?
Correct.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question. This is kind of a wrap-up question here. What advice would you give budding screenwriters trying to break into the industry? And I know it's harder now than it was when you and Eric started, but what advice?
Generation thinks their generation is the hardest. I don't think that's the case. I think my advice to any writer, whether it was 50 years ago when I wasn't around, or I think it will never change, is read all the good stuff. Read it endlessly, because good, just saying a screenplay is good, doesn't exist. Good is relative. Good in relation to what? Good in relation to the best script is not that good. Good in relation to amateur, sure. But if you read the really, really good stuff endlessly, like a script every night, just to inform yourself, you start to see the matrix, sort of. So you start to see the same tricks that they do, and you start to learn those tricks. And as with tools as like AI, as they come out, I don't think it's as much about being able to write that in insofar as like I'm going to copy the way it's written. I think it's just it's knowing what a good script is supposed to look like to the decision makers. That you only learn by reading what they're reading, because you have the same data set. So read the good stuff endlessly, and it'll help you improve as a producer, writer, filmmaker, cinephile, because you start to see what they do.
There's a school of thought out on this subject that if you copy a book, like you want to learn how to be a great novelist or something, you get a pencil and a piece of paper, and you just write in a book, and you just copy the descriptions. You just basically copy it, but you copy it in longhand. And somehow, I've never done this, but apparently that gets your mind wrapping around every sentence, every vowel, because you're steadily writing it down and you're thinking about it as you go along, because you're there for a purpose, and that's the purpose. So
yeah, I would think that's correct. Yeah, I mean, read because. Oh yeah, no, sorry, that's when my camera is off for a second. But I think that's correct. I think that's dead on.
What's correct?
What you said, like reading what other people have done is going to improve you, because it's going to give you just a big data set to compare it to.
Because it helps to slow your mind down, because your mind is always racing to the next thought and the next.
Yeah.
Trying to guess where it's all going, but if you're going steadily through it, just being in the present.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Hernany, did you get home to Texas very often?
Holiday. Oh, my family is there, and yeah, I every chance I can go see them, I go see them, and I tell Eric the same thing. You got to go visit your mother, Eric. So
Thank you.
I'd like to go 3 times a year.
Oh, that's great advice. I so appreciate it.
Of course. Is he listening to me? Is he going enough?
Well, he has been, yes. Last Christmas, 2.5 months later, he returns in March to Hollywood, and so I was so happy. And he bought a one-way ticket here this time, but he had to go back now suddenly for some important meetings. But he'll return maybe in a week and a half or so, and celebrate Christmas. And yeah, so hopefully he'll stay a little longer this year too. I love it, and I made the mistake of telling him last year, I'm going to wait on you hand and foot, Eric. You don't have to do anything. Now, that was.
Why did you go and do that?
I
Because that's
know.
going to
Why
get
did
him
I
to
do
rush
that?
home. Why did you go and do that?
It's called bait and switch.
But it made it easy for him to write. So that I think that's why he wrote Floyd in 2.5 months, because all he had to do was sit and be creative.
Well, I will tell you, I do think that is one of the benefits when you're in LA. I mean, you're in kind of it's still the mecca of entertainment. So especially someone like Eric who knows everybody, you're always going to have an event or someone to see, and that's beneficial for networking. But yeah, it can be distracting, hands down.
Yeah, yeah, and you don't need distractions when you're trying to write, and when you're on a roll, especially, you need to keep going. So yeah, well,
That's exactly right.
so any advice you could give when you think about the challenges that you have, whether as a producer or as a screenwriter, can you give us any advice on how you overcome some of those challenges?
You know, my manager was telling me yesterday, it's like it's just be prepared for the long game, no matter what. Even if you're one of those guys that comes out here and within 5 years you're, EP on a show, you're still gonna have ups and downs. And I think the people who have the careers, nobody realizes they've been doing it for 25 years nonstop and have had ups and downs. So it's the thing is like definitely don't think of it as like I'm going to go do it for 10 years, make money and leave. It's not banking. It's the opposite of that.
Good advice. I know Eric's been out there for 28 years, and so it took a long time for things to come around, but you got to pay your dues, right?
Yeah, and I think he still has a really good career ahead of him.
Yeah.
I see Eric, he could easily be writing a studio movie. He's got that sensibility. And that's another 20 years of, I mean, what is it Denzel said? First learning, then earning. It's very similar to this. And it's somebody kind of gave it to me. They're like an executive. You travel at a 45-degree angle, right? If this is money and time, it kind of goes at 45 degrees. The longer you stay, you steadily climb. Film is like this. Or sometimes it's just like this and doesn't change at all. Or sometimes it goes but it's an all or nothing business.
Yeah.
Feast and famine,
Well, Hernany, we want to thank you so much for joining us today, and best of luck in the future. You're a rising star, if not a star already, and we.
Oh no, believe me, far from it. And hey, last bit of advice: getting to make a living in the business is the reward versus I'm going to make it big. So, and I keep that in mind all the time.
Okay, well, we appreciate it so much, and we'll be sending you a link, and we hope that you will come back and visit us again in the future.
Oh, anytime. Are you kidding? You guys are awesome. Can't thank you guys enough for taking the time. Seriously.
You're very welcome.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a pleasure for us, and that'll take us out right now. So
Yes.
Thank you very much, Hernany and Perlman. What was his last name?
Pearl.
Perla.
Sorry.
Perla, yeah.
It's Pearl Apartments, right?
Yeah. It's Blumhouse, but more low rent. Can't quite get to the house, so I'm still rolling the apartment. That's where it comes from.
Okay, thanks a lot. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you guys. It's a true pleasure, and anything you need, I'm here. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you so much. That went very well.
Bye-bye.
We've had a wonderful show. Got a producer from Hollywood, screenwriter, that shared with us his experiences. I think we all learn as we go, certainly in our side of the table here. Mm-hmm. And it's been a pleasure to interview him. And we will be looking forward to producing one a month. And hope you'll join us again.
We thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope that this show resonates with you. This was a fabulous interview with Hernany Perla, a screenwriter, producer, lives in Hollywood, came originally from San Salvador as a 5-year-old, and his family lives still in Texas. So it's an American success story as well as a wonderful film story. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, be well.